recording, but
Totally. Yeah.
we are recording right now. So and
Awesome.
how did you say your last name?
Yeah. So my name is Fab Mackojc.
Okay, what is that?
Yeah.
What region is that
So it's
from?
Polish. Yeah, it's Polish actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's a bit of a tough one. No one gets that right in the first go.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I read it. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know how I'm gonna say this, but well, cool. So you're coming to us from Melbourne, Australia, and you
That's
are
right.
a web developer as well.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I've been a web developer for a few years now, and used to live and work in San Francisco, and just recently moved back to Australia. Yeah, my hometown.
Okay, awesome. That's great, man. So what got you started into developing in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So when I was still at school, when I was at university, I was doing a mathematics degree, and found that towards the end of that, I wasn't really enjoying it. I didn't think there were too many real world applications I was happy about, and I had the opportunity to go work as an actuary or do finance, and instead, what I ended up falling into almost by chance was working with some tech companies, working with some tech startups here in Australia. And I just really loved that world. It was really like the pace was really exciting. There was no BS. Like real exciting things were happening both here and like elsewhere. And I sort of just fell in love with doing that. And I didn't know how to code at the time, so I did a number of different things, like did business development, community management, did some data analysis. And I guess very quickly I realized that these companies sort of only existed because they had these tech products. It was the software that was the king. And so I sort of realized that the people that were making things happen had the power were the developers, and so that sort of inspired me to learn how to code.
Okay, and that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
what language did you first learn?
Yeah, so I started. I mean, if you call them languages, I started with like just HTML and CSS, just because I think that's a really good way to start in the whole array of where the web is. But like core programming languages would have been Ruby and then JavaScript later on, pretty soon.
Okay. That's awesome. Now, were you kind of self-taught, or did you have a good mentor to help you?
Yeah, so a combination of things. I definitely started self-teaching myself. It certainly helped that I had people around me at these different tech companies who knew, how to code and whatnot. So I had some people definitely to work from and speak to. But I guess there was a friend of mine who mentioned that there was a really intensive programming course over in San Francisco. He was really excited about it. He told me to go check it out. I happened to be visiting the Bay Area with my family. And I ended up checking it out. It seemed legit, and I went over and did that. And that was largely what sprungboard most of my programming ability.
Okay,
doing that. Yeah,
that's great. So it was just one of those intensive boot camps where.
Totally, yeah. So it was Dev Boot Camp actually, but this is going back like 2.5 years now, and I think it's changed a lot since then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but when I did it, and it also helped that I had this mathematics background. I'd been teaching myself, and I sort of had an interest in computers from a young age, but it's sort of like it helped really springboard and make things happen really quickly. It's kind of phenomenal what you can achieve in just like 2-3 months when you're working 15 hours a day.
Okay, great. So so then I'll jump ahead. I guess now 2.5 years. You're saying
sure.
And actually kind of how I found you was just you showed up on my Instagram feed, and
that's right.
I was pretty fascinated. I see 1 week I saw you ran a post. You're in Brazil. The next week it was like Hungary. And so the question I've been most excited to ask you is, okay, so one of the perks about being a developer is that we can work wherever we want to.
For sure.
As long as there's Wi-Fi. So over the past few months, you've been doing that, and I mean, how did you manage your time? And I mean, what was that like? Can you share any of your experiences working?
Yeah, for sure. So for context for the listeners, I guess for the past few months, probably 3 to 4 months, I've been traveling extensively, definitely like 100% remote, doing like the digital nomad lifestyle. But even before that, in these past 2 years, I've been traveling a lot, doing shorter trips, and I guess in a sense, like getting better at working remotely. So I've done like 110 flights in these past 2 years, something like that. So yeah, so I've been around the world a lot, and I guess I think it's definitely something that people need to work on. Both like it's a perspective that's something that you need to get better at as a developer, and the clients and the people you work with need to get used to as well. So it's something that I definitely didn't start out being that good at. I sort of struggled with the communication and making sure that like people, because I think the perception you have to face is that when people don't see you in an office, they tend to think that you're not working, and that can be a big problem. But No, so in terms of managing my time and how I did that, what's great is that in the world we live in now, Wi-Fi is so prevalent for starters, right? Like even if you didn't want to pay for Wi-Fi, you could always go to a Starbucks and just sit down for hours.
Right.
And I may have done that once or twice, but for the most part, it's yeah. I think I was very fortunate in that at first my boss wanted to speak to me every single day to get a heads up on what I was working on, and that was definitely helpful for him to know that I was still working and getting things done. But very, very soon, and and this comes with a level of trust. We were able to speak once a week. We were able to for me to independently pull things off our sprint board and figure out what I would need to do each day, to deem like a full day of work. And so in terms of managing my time, my approach generally is to try and get started and work right away. Work super productively because I'm like massively incentivized if I can finish my days with work and go out and explore the city I'm in.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know if you have any specific things you want to hear, but that's in a nutshell what it's been like.
Okay, I mean that was kind of basically what I was trying to get at too. Is
yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I mean, I actually just quit my salary job, doing development to do freelancing 100%. And
yeah, I have some experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this is my actually first week on my own really doing this, so it's
cool.
It's kind of cool. But that was primarily my question for you is, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I were, like in Brazil or someplace,
Mm-hmm.
that it's just so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could get any work done because I want to go explore so bad.
No. Yeah. It's a lot of self-control. And again, I find that you have to do the work first or else you might not come back to it, right? You might head out and be like, oh, I'll spend like an hour to explore. No, you have to do the work first and then you work really productively and then it's done and you have the rest of the day to yourself. That was me.
That's awesome.
And yeah.
Did you get to meet any other developers out there at all that you got to work with?
I did. Yeah, I did a tiny bit. I didn't get a chance to work with many of them, but I went to a cool co-working space when I was in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And yeah, there were some guys there that were they were working on their own apps and stuff like that. And so yeah, it's an exciting world. There are people everywhere doing this kind of stuff, and it's sort of phenomenal that the web is what brings us all together, right? Yeah. So yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
All right, now so you're back in Australia now.
That's right.
How long are you going to stay here? For a set time, or are you going to go back out and do that again? Or
totally. Yeah. No, good question. So I tried the digital nomad lifestyle. I gave it a real good shot. I don't know if it's for me per se. I'm still very excited about being location independent and being able to travel where and whatever I want. So I also quit my job recently. That was the reason. That was a big reason for moving back. And so I guess my approach into how I want to structure my life and my time is to have a home base of sorts, somewhere where I know I can come back to. I have a lot of friends. I have my family, and then I'll just venture out, whenever I feel like it or if business calls for it. So Fred and I are running some businesses now, which is cool, and I'm also doing some freelance work to keep me going. So yeah, I again, location independent, the nature of the world we live in and the perks of being a developer, I can go jet setting wherever I want. I'm going to Asia in December already, so I know.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah. But for now, I'm kind of happy to be in one place for a while. I think traveling extensively onwards from place to place can kind of get to you. At least it did for me.
Right. Man, well, I'm sure you're excited to be back with all your friends and family, though, right? You're saying it's good.
Yeah, totally. So happy to be back. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's exciting, man. Another thing I want to talk to you about too is, kind of just jump into more so the nature of the industry. And people are. I feel like I'm meeting more and more people that are learning how to program, or it's being, especially in the United States, it's being pushed in a lot of our elementary schools, they're having little after-school programs.
Yeah, totally.
And one of he was our old House Majority Leader. He actually stated, becoming literate in code is as essential to being literate in any language as well as math. Do you agree with that at all? Do you think everyone, I'm sure you've heard that notion that everyone should learn how to code.
That's right.
What is your stance on that?
I think for the most part, I like the idea of that. I think that there is a lot of value in people learning a base level, general sort of programming and a nature of how computers work. I don't think everyone should go out and be a developer. I think a world where all developers means that there's no one else to do things for us. I think that, at its core, I think that one of the things with schooling at the moment is that, we funnel children through this program where everyone learns the same amount of language, the same amount of mathematics, presumably now the same amount of computer programming. And I think for starters, like that's a bad approach because some people are going to be better at things than others. I think you should let people excel at what they're really good at. I think if everyone learns a base level of programming, it might potentially like push some people who just aren't going to be programmers, you know, maybe too far down that track, and people who are going to be superstar programmers, it might hold them back. So I think there's bigger questions as to what the future of schooling is. But I think, yeah, you know, the way the world is going, it will be very helpful if everyone knows some basic programming.
Right. No, I totally agree with that too. You know, as far as even getting like started with it and learning how, you know, you said you had mentors, you had people around you, but do you have any go-to resources now that you use, or, you know?
Yeah. So so the approach that I would use nowadays, and still do, I guess, is probably a little different to what I mean. For starters, right, there's a wealth of resources out there, right? Yeah. There's no shortage of them. I think if people want to go looking for them, they can probably find some really good ones. Anyway, my favorite go-to resource, because of the nature of how I learn things, is Stack Overflow. That saves my butt every single day for sure. Yeah. And I guess that, you know, like the sort of approach that I think is an exciting way to learn. I think, you know, when you're first starting out, you know, go off and do things like Code School, Treehouse, Code Academy, learn the really basics, because, you know, you don't know you don't know like how far like your programming can go. You're still unsure of like where the limitations are. But, you know, once you have like basic syntax down, stuff like that, the way that I find that you get better quickly is that you build things. You basically like, you take ideas, you take projects, and you try and bring them to completion. And so instead of like following a tutorial and just like, you know, watching the video and typing back everything the guy says, you know, you want to build this thing. You have an idea in your head of what it looks like, and you need to go out and figure out how to do it. And the beauty of the web is like that, if you get really good at, you know, searching on Google, you'll figure it out. Right. And that I think is almost the most important skill for a programmer, is like being really good at utilizing Google, because you'll run into a problem. At least this is how I work now. I run into a problem, and I'm already thinking the keywords that will help me find the answers in the correct Stack Overflow pages. You know, it's like it's just as simple as like, once you've committed to like a particular type of language or framework, like you use Rails, and you know, you want to like figure out how to log users in, right? You just type in Rails, like, you know, how do I have user, and then there's you already like you'll have a wealth of people answering your question and going down that track. So I just find that it's more motivating and more exciting to learn just by building things. But right. I feel like it sinks in better.
For me too, I feel like that would keep. Yeah. I mean, that helps keep I utilize the same kind of approach, and yeah, I feel like that's the way it keeps me motivated, actually, to keep building something, rather than I did start at the Treehouse, and you know, that was again about 2.5, 3 years ago is when I started. Totally, yeah. And I mean, I guess I'm a different kind of person. I mean, I could keep my motivation, but as I did start getting more experience in developing, and you know, I actually got a job programming, you know, I couldn't just follow courses like that anymore. I needed to be trying my hand at something and seeing if I could actually make it happen. So
yeah, I agree entirely. And I find that the projects that keep me most motivated are ones I build for myself. I think there's definitely something exciting about building things for other people and seeing other people use it. But at least in my spare time, my own personal side project, it's always stuff for me. That's just because I want it, and then like I'm gonna finish building it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about learning how to code, is you can you can build that yourself.
Well, that's right. That's right. I mean, I think that really is at its core the most exciting thing about learning how to code. You know, I remember the days when I still couldn't learn how to code, and friends and I would talk about app ideas. Like, wouldn't it be great if that existed? And then it's like, you feel so powerless, because without a developer, you know, without hiring someone, you just can't do it. And now, you know, once you know how to code, you're no longer limited by your ideas. You know, like I can think of something now, and I have a small think as to how I would build that, and I'm like, cool, I can do that this weekend. Just like that.
Just experience
like that. Yeah, it's so exciting. That by far is the biggest reason to learn how to code. Like, I think like nowadays, lots and lots of people are hearing like, you should learn how to code, like developers earn stacks of money, like go do this, do that, that's where the future. And it's like forget about that. Like, you should learn how to code because you want to take your ideas and make them reality. You want to like become a more complete creator. That's why you should learn how to code, in my mind.
That's an amazing answer right there. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Well, great. Now, I mean, if anything you can talk about, is there any fun thing, any projects you're working on now that you'd like to share?
For sure, yeah. I mean, like, I can tell you more about the businesses that I'm running at the moment. So I am back here in Australia. I'm running a bulk SMS business. Okay. So, you know, SMS probably sounds like outdated tech. You know, I think email is probably what a lot more people are using now for outreach. But here in Australia, we have a lot of small to medium businesses that, like gyms, for example, have a large list of customers. They have phone numbers for all these customers. They have a lot of engagement when they just send them SMS messages. They remind them to come into the gym, do this, do that. And so we're growing that business. What we've basically done is, it's a competitive space, and a lot of people do that. We've basically built on top of an SMS gateway like Twilio. Our approach and our value prop is that we're incredibly simple. We're super approachable for the non-technical user, and it's like as simple as sending a mass email. It's kind of like the MailChimp for SMS. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called Text Goose. So like text is in text messaging, and goose the animal. TextGoose.com. It's just for Australia at the moment, but yeah, that's one of the big things we're working on.
And the goal is to you trying to just keep it only within Australia, or?
I mean, I think we're very open to growing it. I think we definitely want to start with Australia and really dominate that market, use it as a learning field, and then figure out from there if we want to take it global. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great, man. And not to put you on the spot here, but if you had to give someone who's just getting into developing, or let's say, I mean, like real programming, so they're past HTML, CSS, they want to use logic in actual code.
Totally.
What's the number one piece of advice that you could give them?
What's the number one piece of advice I would give someone who wants to dive into real programming? Yeah,
who's just starting out, like just a good tidbit of advice to help them. If you when you first started learning how to program, what did you wish someone told you?
What did I wish someone I mean, I could tell you a ton of things, right? I mean, I think these are three things I've already covered, and I think they're three things that are really important for early programmers. I mean, there's a wealth of advice. I think these are three kind of big pieces that will help people throughout like a long programming career. I think the first one is doing it for the right reasons. I think you should do it not because people tell you should be doing programming, because you want to do it. You want to see your ideas come to life. I think the second one is that you build best. So I should say, you learn best when you're building things. That's the way in which you go off, and I think you can make really big gains quickly, and you can stay motivated. And I think the third one is you just have to get really good at using Google. You just have to know what to search for when you have particular problems. I think those three things are really big pieces of advice for young developers.
Okay, well, great. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Fab, I really appreciate your time on our show today. So this is sort of a new thing I'm trying to do here. Basically, my overall goal for it is to meet with developers all around the world who, again, aren't, just people like me. They like to code. Whether they're professional developers or just people that are maybe just even weekend hobbyists.
For sure. Yeah.
I just want to get the feel of what everyone else is working on and what just talk code.
Yeah. No, everyone has a story to share, right? It's good to get these perspectives. It's important to have the community too, right?
Definitely,
for sure. So. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. If any of the listeners want to reach out to me at all, the easiest way is to tweet me. I'm Fab Says on Twitter. Love to hear from people. And yeah,
we'll make sure to I'll be having show notes for all this too, so I'll be able to.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, easy.
Throw those in there.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Man. Well, thank you very much for your time, and maybe we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, for sure. You got to come down to Australia sometime, Christian.
That would be great.
All right. Thanks again, man.
Yeah. Have a good one.
All right. You too.